The next router guard we'll talk about is CanDeactivate. Now, CanDeactivate takes a little bit more setup than CanActivate or CanActivate Child. The big reason there's a lot of setup for CanDeactivate is that each component that wants to use it may have a different message. For instance, on our user details page, if somebody clicks away, we want to say, do you want to save this user detail information, or do you want to discard it? If we had a different section of our dashboard and we wanted to reuse this CanDeactivate guard, our message would have to be different. Now, because of that, CanDeactivate does require a little bit more work. It's nothing we can't handle though, so let's get started. Over in Sublime Text, let's create a brand new guard, new file, and we'll call it CanDeactivate guard. We'll import the injectable. We'll import CanDeactivate. We'll add this CanDeactivate method. And there's a reason we didn't implement the interface just yet. We'll talk about that right after this. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to check if the component that's passed to us has a CanDeactivate method. So we'll do return if the component has CanDeactivate, then we'll use the component's CanDeactivate method. And if it doesn't have that, then we'll just return true. And that's a ternary operator statement. This way, we can reuse this CanDeactivate guard as many times as we want, and we'll just look to the component and that CanDeactivate method for each individual implementation. Now let's start bringing in the type safety stuff. We'll implement CanDeactivate. And the way that CanDeactivate works, it wants to know what type of CanDeactivate, and we're going to pass it CanComponentDeactivate. And we're going to give this method a component, which is a CanComponentDeactivate. So what exactly is this CanComponentDeactivate? TypeScript wants to know what this is, and we'll define it right here for it. Export interface. We're just going to create an interface, which is a way for us to tell TypeScript what this CanComponentDeactivate should look like. Just like we used a class to define a user, we can also use an interface to define this CanComponentDeactivate. And what we're looking for here is a CanDeactivate method. Now this should work, but if we really wanted to get into our type safety, we could tell TypeScript that this is supposed to return a function that also returns an observable of a Boolean, or a promise that's also a Boolean, or just a Boolean by itself. And since we're using observable, we'll bring an observable from RxJS, which is that package we bring in. So that is the most type-safe way we can do this. That was a lot of writing, but we're over it now, and we can finally use this CanDeactivate guard for our routing. We created the service. Let's import into app module. Now we can use it under our dashboard routing. Let's apply it to this dashboard user details component. And we'll import that at the top. Now there's one final thing we need to do, but let's check out our application to make sure there are no problems with it so far. Go over to Dashboard, manage users, and we'll click on 1, 2, 3. We'll type in her name, cancel, and we're able to go over there. And notice that our CanDeactivate guard isn't really doing anything. That's because if we go look at it again, we have CanDeactivate guard. If the component itself doesn't have a CanDeactivate method, then we're just returning true. And since it returns true, it allows us to move away from this route. Let's go define CanDeactivate on our dashboard user details component. Let's console log something to make sure that we're working. And also let's return true. This will ensure that we can just navigate away from this page. Let's type into it. Let's click away. And we can see that our CanDeactivate guard is working for us. Now let's make sure that we ask our user if they want to navigate away. We'll do a check here. And our check is to make sure that if the edit name is not equal to the this.user.name, then that means they were editing the user and didn't have a chance to save. Let's do this.user.name is not equal to this.editName. Then we will return window.confirm. And this is just a JavaScript way to bring up that alert box with a question. Discard changes. And if all that's good, we'll return true here. And if the user clicks true here and says, yes, I want to discard, then they'll go ahead and navigate away. Let's make sure this works. Let's edit Nick's name. And we'll click away. And notice that Angular Router is asking for if we want to discard these changes. We'll say OK. And we finally get to go over to the Chris page. Let's do the same here. But this time we'll click Save, and we were able to navigate away. The CanDeactivate guard definitely takes more setup than CanActivate or CanActivate child, but the way we set it up was so that we could reuse it across different components. All we have to do is add CanDeactivate method to whatever component we want to use it with. Then in the routing, we can just add the CanDeactivate guard and call in the CanDeactivate guard service that we created. And the Angular router will go ahead and take care of all of that great stuff for us.